the four phases of creativity, based on cyclical living and the moon phases and the seasons and the power of nature for creating new things in the world. And I learned that from my grandma, so it comes from my maternal lineage.
Hello, and welcome to the Connect podcast. This show is all about helping you connect to your soul's calling so you can take action on it. Because the sweetest success is a blend of discovering your purpose with the inner drive to bring it to life. I'm Sheila Botello, health coach, lifestyle entrepreneur, and mom of two, best known for my online wellness programs, mentoring, and self-love passion. Listen in for inspiring interviews, solo chats, and Q&A sessions that will move you past overwhelm towards what lights you up. Stop accepting good enough and go for your version of great in your health, business, and relationships. Let's get started. Hi, welcome to the podcast. I'm thrilled to have a guest with me today who comes from Finland. And she has been so much fun to get to know in the virtual world. And you are going to love her spirit. You are going to love what she brings with her artistry. Elina Puohiniemi is an artist, life coach, and the creator of the Miracle Doodles series. She inspires visual learners to follow their heart with uplifting doodles that simplify and explain spiritual challenges with a loving twist. Elina spreads joy and happiness through illustrations, print, and online cartoons, coloring pictures, and live drawing performances. She's the author and illustrator of The 4 Phases of Creativity, Color Your Dreams True, and more. Elina, as I mentioned, lives in Finland with her husband, their 2 teenage sons, and a poodle. Elina, it is so good to have you with me today, finally.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, you were recently traveling with your family. And when we were booking this interview, I was trying to get a few in before the summer started, but you were heading out somewhere. And you told me that every year you do something special that is a tradition in Finland. And I would love if you'd share what that is, how it makes you feel, and why it was extra special this year.
Oh my gosh, long time ago. Which one was it?
Ooh, I love
So
that there's
going
more
to the
than
summer
one.
cottage?
Yeah.
Going to the summer cottage, maybe?
Yeah. That sounds great.
Yeah. Or is
And so is this
I don't
something
know
that you
which.
do every year? Do you go to the cottage every year? And were you
Yeah.
able to go in recent years because of all of the hoopla in the world?
Yeah. They are in the woods, so
Oh,
you're safe there.
beautiful. Beautiful. So tell me,
Yeah,
what
so
is your favorite part about that when you go there?
it's the silence when you shut the car door behind you and step outside, and there is just no sounds but nature sounds. Wind in the
Oh,
trees, the birds, and of
yeah.
course going to sauna and swim in the lake and watching the stars at night because there are no city lights. So except for the summer, there are no stars because it's light out in the night. So
Right.
I've been really excited now for a couple of weeks. I have been walking my dog in the dark in the evening because it's getting darker earlier and earlier. So I get to see the stars.
Well, and that really feeds into the way that you view the world too, through nature, through the cosmos, and having that connection to the stars seems like it's something very important to you as well, and being
Yeah.
able to see them. And so, what I would love to know is, because you're an artist, every artist has an origin story of when they knew this is what they were meant to be doing. And I would love to hear yours. Like, did this pull at you from a really early age? Or was this something that you cultivated later on and you discovered?
I have always been drawing. Yeah. So I don't know a moment, but when I was 10 years old, and this comes to my books and my doodles and everything that I do, is that I'm a tactile learner. And I learned that when I was 10 years old. And I studied for geography test. and I started doodling my notes because I realized that I learn best if I do it by my hands and doodle and draw. So there was this one, it was a hurricane and how they form, and I still have the image in my head. I don't have the words anymore for the specifics, but but for the image, I have it in my head. So I started drawing my school, like everything I wanted to learn, I started to draw it. And then my doodles started forming when I was um, studying A Course in Miracles in 2014. And I needed to really study. I wanted to learn it. So there, therein came my doodle character, Mira. So, so it came when I was 10 years old that I need to learn and doodle.
That is such a beautiful way to learn. Having home
Yeah.
educated my boys for many years, I saw how different even two boys just 2 years apart in the same family learn very, very differently. And
Yeah.
I was grateful to have the opportunity to cultivate what is that? Like, how, what is going to work better for one than the other? Like, let's figure
Yeah.
this out. And one of them is what I would consider more artistic. Both of them used to love to draw. One of them was more actually cartoons, but just comical things, not really super detailed, just more about the
Yeah.
essence of what the cartoon was about. And the other one was more, you know, put a lot of thought into the artistry of it. And he, interestingly enough, is someone who is an auditory learner. So hearing things is how he learns best and picturing them in his
Yeah.
mind. So I can see how with you,
Yeah.
drawing out what is in your mind helped cement that in. Is it
Yeah. And
something that
also,
was really encouraged in your home growing up? Or like what was the school system like for you in that regard as your teachers may have seen you processing this way?
well, I have been always this observer kind of child, so I don't think they saw it. I just bumped into a note from a teacher for my mom saying that your daughter should be raising her hand more often because she knows this stuff, but she just never answers the questions. So it was like, okay, I've been very private. So, but I was encouraged by my parents. I've
That's
always
great.
been. They're my greatest fans.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh, that just gave me some tingles because that's what
Yeah,
we need. Not all of
yeah,
us are meant to be, ooh, I have the answer. Let me raise my hand. Not all of us are meant to be that. We need observers. Like, where would we be in our world if we didn't have people stepping back and looking at the big picture and pulling out the important pieces? I know
yeah,
for me, I would just keep running, running, running and hitting walls. So I'm grateful for the people in my life who do that for me. And
yeah.
so
And
your
that's
doodles, yes.
yeah, yeah. Those are my doodles. What they do that I try to go to the core of things to find the truth about the challenges. And it's typically the answer is love. So it's quite simple in the end when you have drawn like 1,000 doodles or 2,000 doodles, it starts to stick. Like, you start to find the answer.
Absolutely. And your doodles, like you say, they really do tap into both joy and other deep emotions. And they've encouraged many people to get curious about how they're feeling in a way that takes the charge out of emotions that may otherwise get buried or even bypassed because we just want to keep going. Oh, I have the answer. I'm moving forward. I'm moving forward. I don't want to face my stuff. So I'd
Yeah.
love to know how these doodles came to be. Like you said, you were reading A Course in Miracles in 2014. So, what drew you to A Course in Miracles? And then obviously, we know now why you doodled because it's how you process what you're learning.
Mhm.
But what drew you to A Course in Miracles?
Maybe I take you back to when I
Please.
finished high school,
Yeah.
because that's when I needed to plan my future and decide which schools I'm going to go to. And I was really stressed about high school. It was something that was really, I had so many symptoms in my body of stress, belly aches and migraines every week. Almost every day I had a headache. And I just realized that that isn't going to work for me. to continue the way that I had done before that. So I had this vision of me sitting on a cliff in Helsinki next to the sea, and it was windy, it was cool, and I started reflecting my life and started asking myself what has brought me joy. And I found 3 things that ever since have defined my every decision, my every hobby, my every work, everything that is going through it in my life. If I make a detour, then I'm quickly returned back to this path that I set myself up to and when I was 19. So I have been following my heart. I call it that because what brings you joy comes from your heart, and it's the navigation tool for that. So I have been choosing what brings me joy ever since. And I had, it was in 2005 when I saw that life coaching is a thing. So in 2000, early 2010, 11, somewhere there, I started studying as a life coach and to become a life coach and then a master coach. And then everywhere were studying more and more, I started seeing A Course in Miracles mentioned. I was told that it's a really hard book to learn and study, and that you will just swap flies with it eventually. Like nobody reads it, really. So in 2014, I started studying it. And the moment I opened the workbook, I felt like I'm at home. It was just returning home. Like, okay, this is me. Like, this is like everything I had studied before that felt like it came from that book.
Wow.
Like A Course in Miracles was the grandfather explaining everything that I had questions about. And on the 9th day, I started drawing stick figure ladies on my notes. And that's it. She was born then.
That is when Mira was born.
Yeah.
Why did you choose the name Mira?
Oh, okay, that's good. Wordplay. I like wordplays. So it was first going to be called Herta, which is hearts in the a card deck.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I realized that it can't be because that's my great aunt named the same name as my great aunt. So it wasn't good. But Mira came from miracles, and because in Finnish, miracle is called ihme, and a human is called ihminen, which it sounds like human is kind of a miracle. So
And
I was
they
thinking
are.
like, yeah, so, but in the language also.
Yeah.
So I turned it around in English, and the shorter version is my doodle character, and miracle is the longer word.
Oh, wow. And you have probably heard of and heard speak Miracle Lori May in the group that we met in. And she
Yeah.
was recently on the podcast. And I'm like, oh my goodness,
Okay,
that's
I have
so
to listen.
cool. It was back in the spring. So we have had a miracle on the podcast. And now we're going to learn about Mira.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
of the
And
same origin.
yeah, and there's more to the word. It's the Latin word mira means awe and wonder. And then mir in Russia means peace. And then in Spanish it's to look. So there's like look, wonder, peace. So be aware of peace and wonder.
Oh, imagine our world if we started our days like that. If everybody started their day looking for that instead
Yeah.
of looking for what's not working and what's hard.
Yeah.
Because that stuff
Yeah.
is the stuff we feel for sure. And that's why we need to be looking for the miracles.
Yes.
So much
Yes. And
fun.
living next to Russia and what's going on around in the world over there, I feel really blessed to write in their language piece. Like every time I talk about my doodle character, even though I don't know anything else about Russian language. But
Yes. It's
So it's
like,
my kind of like meditation for peace of the world.
exactly. I was just going to say, it's like a prayer, it's a meditation,
Yeah,
it's an
prayer.
offering. That is so
Yeah.
beautiful. Well, I love this story. And what would you say are some of the, I mean, I'm sure there's so many, but if you can think of like the highlights of the first one or two things that come to mind of what you really gained in your own personal life from A Course in Miracles, what would they be?
It was like the ultimate course to finish what I had studied so far about happiness and joy and love. And because I had been in that world of life coaching for so long, it felt like it was just this, mm, like this 4 years of studying that helped my family thrive.
Mm,
Like I feel like that's the biggest thing, that it's really true when have a happy mom, you have a happy family. So
yes.
I think that's the biggest thing.
Well,
Like,
I was going to ask you about that actually. You know, you're a mom of two teenage boys, as I am as well, and we've bonded
yes.
over that, and
And
it's
weren't they the
special.
same age, 14 and 16?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I have
Birthdays
been
both.
married,
Yeah.
or I've been with my husband for 21 years next week. So,
Wow, congratulations.
yeah.
So amazing. I love that. Well, I've really enjoyed hearing you share about the way your family coexists. You know, it sounds like there's a lot of love, a lot of playfulness alongside practical working together to really make the family unit work. Like it feels like it's a team, it's a symbiotic collection of humans. And
Hmm.
you know, what obviously I was going to say, what's your secret sauce in creating this? Obviously, it's your work in the life coaching world and in A Course in Miracles. What is a principle that you feel like underrides all of or underpins all of your parenting with your
Ah,
boys?
yes. It's self-knowledge and trust. So concentrating on myself and knowing who I am, and then trusting that they are not born here for me, but through me.
Oh,
And that they have their own path, and whatever comes on their path, I can only be a guide and be with them, helping, guiding, but but whatever comes, they need to go through it themselves.
yes. That got me teary. Is that
Hmm.
something it can be so hard as a mother or a
Yeah,
father to really release into that? Like we want to step in and we want to fix. And yet that has been also a foundational thought for myself as well. Even as I've witnessed myself kind of like, oh, I'm going to go in and help. It's like, wait, no, I'm going to support. I'm going to support them
yeah,
through it and guide them to think for themselves as well. That
yeah,
hopefully the things we've modeled and taught for them, at least some of them, because, you know, we're imperfect humans, is going to land and stay with them and guide them as well. Like that
yeah,
whole idea of you came here for your own purpose, not to meet all of my needs, not to do all the things I wish for you that I didn't get to do.
hmm,
Because you know what, I'm still
and
here. I get to do those things. Like I can still, it's not too late, right? Like we're this whole
yeah,
societal programming of, oh no, by a certain age, everything's done. No. And do we want that for our kids? Do we want that programming for our kids? So I love that that is the theme in your family. And did you
yeah,
find it was something that was very natural for your husband to step into as well, your partner?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like I always met the most kind and loving men in my life, like my two brothers and my father. And I come from a family who we have been doing things together. Like my father is the writer, the author, and I have been illustrating his books, and my brother has been photographing his cover pictures, and my other brother has been making the layouts, and and mom is supporting there.
What a
So
beautiful connection that you have with your family to be able to
yeah,
create together. That obviously, no wonder your parents supported you so much in your art. from a young
Yeah.
age because they also had that artistry within them as well. It's definitely
Yeah.
been something you're steeped
Yeah.
in from a young age.
Yes. And so it's easy to just continue with your own family. And
Mhm.
also to be gentle because I feel like um it starts to sound like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
But with children and parenting, the best part is that you have time to course correct. You
Yes.
have time to be the messy person you are. And that's like the best example for your children to model. Like, how do you rise from there? How do you apologize? No,
Mm.
like, how do you be a real human being? Like the authentic one.
Yes.
And just like to accept all the emotions. And every time if I have yelled at them, I know that I'm with every shout, I'm giving them permission to do the same to me and yell back. It maybe it's not at the same moment, but years from now, like I just need to handle it myself when that comes back to me, like it's giving permission all the time.
That is so wise. I love hearing how everyone helps out, everyone's a part of the process. And do you feel like with that, because I know my experience, but I'm curious about yours. Do you find with teenage boys, is there resentment that comes up for them? Like, oh, I've got to help with this, I got to help with that. Or is it a different experience for you? Like, again, most of the time.
Help with. There are different personalities. The other one is the helper, and the other one is the thinker. So, so there is. Um, it's also about navigating in stressful situations where I can see that they have something going on in their life, and I cannot put more pressure on them from my side. Like sometimes when I'm in full creative mode and I'm just in the flow, I don't see around me. I don't care about how messy our home is. I don't care if the dishes are washed or not. I can just wash that one plate myself if I need a plate, like before I eat. It's like it doesn't matter. Nothing like that, like help in the house. It doesn't matter. And they forgive me when I'm like that. So
Mhm.
if they are going through something that they need to just concentrate on what they are creating or learning or studying or going through with their teen hormones, maybe that's the time when you can also say that, okay, let's come back to this helping thing a little bit later, like in a couple of months. Like I'll give you the pass now.
I love it. It's like having grace on each other.
Yeah.
And we operate very similarly in our family as well. And I also had to unplug from a bit of programming. Like it was very similar in my home growing up, but still I had these models around me of what parenting was of no, what you say goes. So they just need to fall into line and do the thing. And then I started to ask the question, so am I raising robots? Am I a puppet master or am I a loving parent who knows that just like myself, everyone and my kids has emotions that are going to shift and has things they're going through and we just need to be kind and have grace on each other. And that's not going to make them feel like they have a free pass to just go hog wild and and never listen to me again. It's that I think it's that control piece. And we have it for ourselves. We feel like maybe on the brink of losing control of certain things. If we don't just stick to all the habits, oh no, what will happen? The same thing in our parenting. If we don't hold the control, everything's going to fall apart. When instead, as you're saying, if we are sensitive to each other's needs, it will flow and there'll be a natural rhythm to it. Much like the nature that you love to
Yeah.
steep in as well. There's that flow
Yeah.
and there's seasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything's seasons.
Yeah. And also you take care of the weakest link,
Mm,
then you're strongest. Like in nature, of course, that happens that if somebody's sick, they get eaten. But in a family, we can be more human and, and really lean into that. And I was working with children for a couple of decades, like 3 to 5 year old kids. And that was also like one of my things that you really, in a group of children, you really need to take care of the weakest link, the one with the most problems and struggles, because they're all the other kids they're looking at how you model your behavior. Are you getting frustrated with that kid, or are you really like loving and accepting and taking everyone in, and you know.
And it creates that atmosphere where everyone
Yeah.
does take care of each other. Because on
Yeah.
any given day, no matter what, one of us is going to be in that less strong position because
Yeah.
we do flow with our emotions and life happens to us. So to know there's that safe space, and especially for the little ones, to feel safe in a learning environment and at home, to be able to then grow that from that strong foundation into the confident adults they plan to
Hmm.
be. It's like
Yeah.
entering into parenthood and being so thrilled by these tiny little humans. And they're just so cute and sweet. And every little sound is just, and every coo just like melts your heart. And to try and remember in those times, ooh, I'm raising an adult, right?
I never thought about
Try
that.
and remember for me, not in those very, very tender moments, but like knowing that when they would be, like you say, as a young 3 to 5 year old, you know, trying things, falling down, getting up. Am I going to do everything for them? Or am I going to walk alongside of them and guide them and model for them? Because at
Yeah.
some point, they're not going to have me there to swoop in. And it
Yeah.
builds that resilience and it gives them the ability to know that they do have strength and they have a
Yeah.
safe place to land with you as
Yeah.
well. But
Yeah.
not this, oh
Yeah.
no, until you leave the house, I'm going to do everything. Mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And I was a nature educator. So I took the group of children in the forest,
beautiful.
and then we just walked the border of the imagined area that we were supposed to stay in. And then we just climbed the trees and danced and laughed and played, and and I had this saw and the knives and everything that I was just giving them, and they were so happy that I trusted them, and
Yeah.
nothing ever happened. And it's amazing.
That is amazing. Wow. Like that well, again, I grew up in the country and I had two kinds of friends. I had the friends who were um they were left to their own devices and they were really good. They would honor what their parents' desires were for them. And they were like they'd have jackknives, they'd do all of these things and they'd be out there with all these tools and they felt safe with them. And then I had other friends who they weren't allowed to do all those things and they weren't allowed to get dirty. And it was very like there was a structure, but it was kind of a fearful thing. And
Yeah.
now I can see, I mean, I'm not sure how does that impact them now in their life so much because we've lost a lot of touch. But I did see who was more anxious of the
Yeah.
two groups. And the ones that felt like free had less stress through their school years. That was just my
Yeah.
experience. That's not clinical, but it's just an interesting observation. And so we
Yeah.
can carry that with us into, relationships with our kids or our nieces or nephews or the younger people in our life if people aren't
Hmm.
parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And it was interesting to get those both kind of children in my groups, because I needed to have them all with the courage that we needed in the forest.
yes.
And they were
Courage is
beautiful
something that is,
experiences.
yeah, courage is built, isn't it?
Hmm.
It's something that
Yeah.
you have to experience. You can't.
Yeah. It's in the eyes of the child who is climbing the tree for the first time and looking for permission with every step. And then I can just say that you can do it. Like,
Mm.
I'm not coming and like lifting you up. You can come down yourself. Like, just put that one foot down and then the other. you know.
Oh, that is so great.
Yeah.
I loved reading in the willow tree in my backyard. There were two willow trees and if it rained, there'd be a little pond underneath it. And I just loved that. My sister and I would climb trees. And so my boys enjoyed climbing trees. I think my younger son still, if he can climb
Yeah.
something, he's climbing it. They would eat their lunch in the tree. I'd be like,
Yeah.
here's
Yeah.
your little plate. And
Yeah.
they'd be up there swinging and And there's such a, well, there forest bathing in the Japanese culture exists for a reason. Like there is
Yeah.
an energy in the forest. There's an energy in all over nature, obviously.
Yeah.
And we often feel it or talk about like the energy of the ocean, like the great power of the ocean and the sand and being in the sun. And then, the energy of being in some type of rain shower or the energy of being in the cold, cold, dark winter. There is an energy. It's a different kind, definitely a different kind of energy, like a very still,
Yeah.
void feeling energy, but still very powerfully, like powerfully quiet in a sense.
Yeah, it
And
is.
then there's
It
the
sucks.
forest, right? Yeah. The
It is no
forest,
sucks all the
yeah,
voice in.
it sucks you in. Yeah. And some would say winter sucks because they just
Aha,
don't
that's
like
my
it.
favorite season.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like there is something beautiful to take from each of the seasons if we really allow ourselves to. Right. So if
Yeah.
it's like looking for things to be grateful for and having gratitude. What can I be grateful for? Like, and are you able to see the northern lights in the winter?
Yeah, and this year is going to be exciting because it's every 11 years there are more of them, and this is the 11th year. So there should
Mm.
be more of them. But of course, I live in the city, so we have to really go deep in the forest to see it. But and they're just like swirling shades, like they're not so clear here in the
Hmm.
south, but they're
Wow.
there.
It's great that you're able to be close to that. So then there's something to look forward to, right? Something to be grateful
Yes,
for.
yes,
And I was just going to say, like, to tie up this nature conversation about the forest, I think it does get overlooked when we think about all the ecosystems in terms of how it impacts us, that there is that energy of the forest. And perhaps we can tap into that when we think of the rainforest, right? There's so much life, there's so much diversity. And whenever I watch something like a nature special and I see all the varieties of plants and all the varieties of animals and birds and everything, it's just like it blows your mind, right? But it blows my mind because I'm not really thinking of the forest much because yes, I live in a city and while I grew up in the country and there were some wooded areas, like I loved that feeling of being there, but that's not where we spend most of our time because there, especially as a young woman, like you don't want to be alone in the forest because, who knows what can happen, right? So if anything, we start having these feelings of fear about being in a place like that. So if you can be supported in the forest, like with a group or something like that, and really just enjoying that energy. Anytime I would, like, we'd play games, a whole group of us would play games on the dirt road that I grew up in, and we would be in the forest. And there is something so rejuvenating in that space, like the sounds and yeah, I can feel it. It's even hard to describe. So I'm
yeah,
grateful that you were able to have that time with the young ones, and I'm sure that you also did that with your own children whenever you could.
yes, 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 I did. And I don't do that anymore with children. I've been concentrating on my art fully. But but yeah, nature is a forest is something that I spend around 2 hours every day in the forest that starts from my window. It's not a big one, but we have deer and fox and badgers and raccoon dogs and um, some hawks, and so it's like it's a good forest to be, and
That's
you can
wow.
eat blueberries and
Oh
and
my goodness.
strawberries and raspberries, and
Wow.
so it's a
Yeah.
good forest.
My forest was not like that. My forest, maybe a cat went walking through once. And
Yeah, yeah,
it was the
yeah,
country, but there we didn't have
yeah,
that diversity. That's beautiful.
yeah, yeah. And it's
Wow.
funny that many people think about like what can happen in the forest, like other people could be there, or like they're most afraid of other people in the forest. But there is hardly anyone there ever
Mhm.
but me and my dog. Like I live in a city and I can walk in the forest for an hour without seeing a person.
Mm.
And that's weird.
It's great that you have that practice of really tapping into nature. And I'm sure that informs a lot on the art that you do. And I would really love to hear, what are you working on right now that you're most excited about? Like, what are you coming off of? I know you've been publishing some things, but what's coming next for you?
What's coming next? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm in a launch mode for my next book, and I have this problem of shiny object syndrome of wanting to move forward and not yet. Like the launch will happen in October, and and I'm already planning on what's next. Like, what's my next project? Like, I would love to. Uh, but maybe because I got this idea today. Like, I would like to. Well, I have been thinking about it for a couple of years, but I would love to draw about my dog, the poodle, some poodle doodles, because she's the most loving thing that I have ever met as
Oh.
an animal. And her name is Nani, but her official name is Keep on Loving. And that's my mantra because she wags her tail all the time when we walk in the forest. And I just go like, keep on loving, keep on loving. And she just loves everybody. So she has a lot of good lessons for me about love to teach. So if I would draw them, just to have some, a personal project.
Oh, that is beautiful. Yes. So well, and I'm like yourself. I'm in something and then I am thinking about what's next. It's just kind of the
Yeah,
design, the artist, right? Is
yeah,
always seeing what's happening.
yeah.
And so this launch, tell us about your launch and then also, share how we can follow this and be a part of it.
Okay. But this launch is not maybe optimal for Canadian and the US listeners. I
Mhm.
think if you have those, maybe I could talk about the previous launch of the
Great.
Four Faces of Creativity. But I can show
Yes.
the next book is going to be a collection of doodles. I don't know if you can see the picture
Oh,
there.
beautiful.
It's like it's going to be someday also in the US. Like I now launched in August this paperback of this Four Faces of Creativity.
It's so great.
And that's maybe the thing that you can easily follow from over there and
Right.
get
And
in
so
your
tell me the
hand.
premise of the four phases of creativity and what Mira does as she's walking through this story.
Okay, so that's based on cyclical living and the moon phases and the seasons and the power of nature as a teacher for creating new things in the world. And I learned that from my grandma. So it comes from my maternal lineage
I love that.
that you she was respecting the moon or honoring the moon cycles in her because she's a farmer's wife. So in her life, she was always telling us how to plant the seeds on the new moon or waxing moon because then they grow sturdy roots. So in this book, Mira goes through this like a process which grows sturdy roots for her dreams. And it has journaling prompts for every phase of creativity, which are resting, taking action, or resting, planting seeds, taking action, and then finishing what you have started. And I have always struggled with finishing what what I started because I have so many new ideas. I'm the manifester in human design, so I'm really good at starting things. But this process, this path from what I learned from the seasons and nature has really helped me to go through all the way with my projects. And that's why I wanted it to be like the first book of this series of Miracle Doodle books.
And that is such a nice foundation for having a life that you don't need to rush through because you know that there is always a time, there is always a season and a phase that you can make advancements or take the
Yeah.
rest. I've
Yeah.
learned a lot about that too. And cyclical living has been something for the past many years that I have also been sharing with the people that I work with. And
Yeah.
It's a game changer. And it's what we've
It is.
had, everyone, all of humanity. We all have the seasons, right? We all have the moon. And then for the
Yeah.
female identifying versions, we have our menstrual cycles. And it's
Yeah.
all trying to show us, look, don't rush. There's more to come. You've got time.
Yeah. And resting is the most productive thing you can do for your creativity.
Tell me more about that.
Well, it's like my solution for every problem that I have. Like, like if I have problems, then I can have a rest for like I just lay down to rest, whatever it is, for a day or two or three, and then I'm really quick at catching up with everything that was laid down for those 3 days. And in that book, The Four Phases of Creativity, I introduced this resting in joy. So it's not always resting your body, because sometimes you have been sleeping enough and your body is rested, but then your mind or soul is unrested. And that's when you go back to joy. What brings you joy? What lights you up? What makes you laugh? And then you go do those things. And that's what I call resting in joy. And I think that's like the most rejuvenating thing. And that's what my nature walks out. That's my self-care.
I love that. And that was going to be my next question. Like, what is the self care that lights you up the most? Sounds like it's being in
Okay,
nature.
it is. But then I have another one. I was planning this to talk about this too, because it's a like in this season of my life is tending my big vision and keeping that in my mind on a weekly basis. In my weekly planning, I always ask like, how can I tend to my big vision this week?
Mm, that's a beautiful question.
Yeah. And like before I used to have PMS symptoms and all these things. And now I have felt like I don't have them anymore because I am doing things that are really my dreams. And like if I haven't tended to my big vision, I get really cranky before my period. And I feel like that's like the bottleneck. Like you just have to keep your vision and your dreams alive to feel well.
And that's something that you can't take a pill for, right? And that's
Yeah.
something that often we overlook. And I have found the same thing with myself.
Yes.
I so
Yes.
identify with that. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, you find yourself spinning out and maybe getting snappish with the people around you. And it's like,
Yeah.
they did nothing. This is all
Yeah.
me. What? Okay, let's look inward. What is it? And usually it's that it's resentment of the stuff that you need to do around you because you've not put the effort and time and
Yeah.
space and thinking into the thing you really want to do. And then when you do it, there is a connection to what happens in your body because I have felt
Yeah.
that too. And I keep hearing this
Yeah.
from people. I love it so much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's powerful.
It is. Well, this has been so nourishing. I feel
Mm.
like I could just sit and listen to you share the way you do life and the way you do your art and the way you parent. I could just listen to you all day. And so I'm hoping to have more conversations very soon.
Thank you. Me too.
I am so
It is.
grateful that you're here. And I'd love for you to share where people can find and follow you. And we'll make sure that we link that in the show notes.
Okay. So I have like two domains, which are for my illustrations and then for my doodles. So you can find my doodles at doodlingmiracles.com. And Doodling Miracles is the handle on social media, Facebook and Instagram. And then I have my illustrations on elinap.me, which is ELINAP.me. And that's the handle for social media too. Currently, I'm more active around there on social media.
Right. Yeah, you probably took a little bit of more space in when you were doing some of your travels, right? Like, do you find you do that? You unplug a
Um,
bit here and there?
my summers are my offline time. So sometimes I've had 99 days break from social media during the summer, but it's now I only had like 5 weeks or 4. I don't remember. But it's like I need it.
So many people who just heard that just had a feeling, either two things: anxiety of how would you be able to do that? And the other half, oh, that sounds incredible. I want that. And guess what? We all get to choose. We all get to
Yeah.
remember there was a time. I mean, you and I can remember there was a time
Uh-huh.
before these supercomputers we carried in our purse.
I
There
know.
was a time before we could be with our thoughts, right? And sit in a tree and read a book. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you're modeling that for all of us to remember.
Yeah.
Yes, unplug. It is possible.
Yeah. 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 I'm a little rebel. So I always tend to do things so that I think that can I get caught? And then I never get caught. Like nobody ever asks. So it's fun.
Everybody's caught up with their own stuff anyway. There's enough
Yes.
happening on the,
Yes.
we can take some time away. There's people will be
Yeah.
engaged elsewhere and
Yeah.
they will come back. And that's the thing. If they really truly resonate with what you're teaching, first of all, they'll respect you for doing that for yourself. And also they'll want to come back because they just want more. They want to hear
Yeah.
and they want to see what
Yeah.
you are creating.
And they wouldn't want to see and hear my exhausted self. Rather, after the exhaustion, I can come back and say that like, this is what I did to help myself, but not in the middle of the mess. And
No,
I would be in a mess if I didn't have those breaks and tended to my own well-being.
those
So it's good
incredible
to
self-care
listen.
tips.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me
Thank
today,
you.
Elina. And to you, beautiful listener, we would love to hear which part of this conversation resonated or how many different parts of our conversation resonated with you. Please DM or tag Elina and I at the links in the show notes. It is always so good to hear what is landing for you and how these chats impact you. We'll see you on the next episode. Big blessings. Thank you so much for being here with me on the Connect podcast. If you like this episode, please share it with someone you think would enjoy it. Also, if you head over to iTunes to leave a review, I'd be so grateful. Let us know what your favorite parts were and what you'd like to hear more of. It will help us have a greater impact, elevating many more people to grow and succeed together. See you next time.